Hey, this is Daniel M. Pinkwater, author person.
Oh, I thought that was me.
That's you. I mean, you are.
Oh, yes, I am.
We have a problem in the English language with what is it called? This and that, a declarative or a pointing out type adjective or whatever. I've forgotten.
Don't ask me.
I think grammar is a lot of fun.
My grammar was nice. She used to give me little candies.
Well, that's because she was a naughty old lady and had paid her sin tax. Take that.
Let me address myself to your listeners.
Right, why don't you?
For those of you capable of hearing and comprehending this, I'm responsible for the weighty work of literature that Bill Watson just finished reading, to my extreme pleasure. I don't know whether you liked it. And I thought it would behoove me to say something about the fact that you really wouldn't be apt to hear it on any other frequency than the one to which we're all tuned. Nowhere else would you hear such trashy literature read by a person of such outstanding qualities.
Or such good literature read by such a trashy fellow.
Well, that follows when you read the Proust. I just enjoin you all to think about that, particularly if you liked it. But even if you didn't, it is not everywhere on the dial that you can hear a more or less unknown.
I have morals. What do you mean moralless? Go on.
I'm sorry?
Did you say moralless? I have morals.
You do?
Yes. Very ethical fellow.
I heard of it.
Go on.
Well, I thank you, Watson, for having given an exciting reading to my work, which I was thrilled by. I am not the least ashamed to admit, without a blush. And I want to note that you do this under the auspices of the only place which would tolerate such an outrage against art on both our parts.
That is a fact. Yeah, this is money collecting time too.
Why I said all that.
Yeah, I figured you had a point. At some point there. The listeners should know I read that all cold, as we say in showbiz. Mostly because there are different approaches to reading stuff, and I wanted this just to be a guy reading a story. Some other stuff, I have a furious distaste for the sound of over-rehearsal, and I would rather kick a few words around than sound as though I had just returned from a successful appointment with my taxidermist.
This is consonant with the way in which the thing got wrote.
Yeah.
Pardon me while I kill a frog. No offense, Marcel.
You said consonant, so I can be in a vowel mood now, I guess. Go on.
In fact, one of the ways in which I write things is ad lib, or cold, if you like. That is to say, the book you just polished off, I wrote without rewriting, without any consideration of what was going to happen next until it happened, which I found very pleasurable. It came out of the typewriter, and I read it and enjoyed it.
Well, I did the same when I wrote Hamlet. It was a little, it took me a couple of days.
I like the sword fights that you put in. They broke the monotony.
I thought it would give it a little pizzazz.
You can't just have people talking at the audience all the time. You've got to give them something to look at.
I think we should give credit for the music was, I also wrote that music. No, I would like to credit. By the way, I didn't see the movie, but I thought it's a splendid dramatic heroism. I thought was presented a fascinating propinquity. It was from Lawrence of Arabia, and was lent me, and I decided I would use it. You noticed there were sandstorms during your story.
Yes, I liked the music very much. It enhanced things quite a bit, and it also struck me as hilarious at times.
Of course. Paul Wonder is the nice guy here, who's a theater music aficionado or whatever, and he gave me a copy of it, which I found useful. There is on Channel 13 the other day, I saw a very good exposition done very calmly and without pedantry and down the endless nose look, about the effect of music with other material. And I've been doing it for years, mostly with the acquiescence, sometimes applause, and even approval of listeners. But now and again there is some prissy, pedantic prig. I said prig, P-R-I-G, prig.
Look it up.
Right. Who feels that, his puristic prerogative has been... I was going to continue this alliteration, but I ran out of letters there. At any rate...
If a lesser broadcaster had done that, he would have popped at least one of those P's.
I dare say, there's a broadcaster whom I won't identify who pronounces S's as though they are Z's, and I believe he is the end bad product of a rhetoric teacher or something. But, say, this is fun to pop your S's like that. Now, where were we with this absurd continuum?
You were talking about...
Oh, yes.
The use of music in conjunction with...
Right. It can do a hell of a lot of things. I dare say the most notable of people who have done this would be Richard Wagner with his leitmotif that suggests something happening. But as this man pointed out, and I was very interested in his exposition because he was saying some things I already knew and some that hadn't quite occurred to me consciously, and I was doing it with your book, Alan Mendelsohn, The Boy from Mars, and the Lawrence of Arabia music. You can get a kind of... you can get mockery, you can get fun, you can get heightened effect, you can get a kind of what I would call emotional torque, where
and frequently it was serendipitous in the reading. The music, and it can't conceivably have been planned because you were reading the thing cold,
You're right.
as you said. But very often, the juxtaposition of the music did all those things.
Right. I will give away a Deus Ex Machina trick here. I could hear the music, and I would pace my reading occasionally with the rhythm of the music. It doesn't always work exactly right. As a matter of fact, I have long felt that any human experience is, in effect, a complex equation in which, of course, there are factors. You can move the factors around a considerable amount without destroying intent. Occasionally, you achieve unintentionally by a kind of mad magic an oxymoronic torque. I'm glad I said that. I don't know I know exactly what I meant.
You're the only one.
Well, oxymoron is an inclusion in one metaphor of two dissimilars. For example, bittersweet is the corniest of all. A contrariety included in the same statement, and you could effectuate that contrariety, that mixture, by playing, let's say, battle music with a love scene. Mm-hmm. That would be the thing that first comes to my mind. Now, the one that you suggested, the ox, boustrophedon writing. You as a writer would find this interesting. There have, through the years, been reformers who thought that we weren't doing things quite right or optimally. Among them, George Bernard Shaw, who wanted to simplify orthography, spelling. There was another pioneer whose name I don't know, maybe one of the beefeaters now that I think of it, who thought that you should start... boustrophedon writing is almost literally the way an ox turns in his pulling a plow. You start, let's say, from the left, go to the end of the sentence, then proceed back.
Drop down one,
right.
Drop down one, go to the left.
Now, here's a strange thing.
Yes?
That's boustrophedon writing. It didn't quite catch on because people are habituated to more difficult things. I, as a long-time Gentile and non-Oriental, still, and I know other people with that same category as I, find the Jews and the Orientals somehow or other right in starting from the right. When, for example, if I pick up a big magazine, I don't start from the front. I flip from the back toward the front.
Being no doubt right-handed.
Yes. I guess that must be it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I am.
That may be it. Incidentally, incidentally, speaking of the incidental music to Lawrence of Arabia,
Oh, yes.
one of the things that I perceived during your reading and use of the music is it's rather a nice composition.
It is indeed, and it wasn't boring either, was it?
Music at its best. It has a very what shall I say? It has a very kinetic quality, and it suggests distances being traversed, movement, space. It's very effective, and I got to like it during the weeks that I've been listening to my own story with that music.
I started off, as you may remember, with Mendelssohn's Midsummer Night's Dream, a kind of pun intended.
The night that you introduced the Lawrence of Arabia music, I found it hilarious. Then I got to like it. And I'll tell you, actually, what happened is in the course of your reading, I came to the end of a project and began a novel, and damned if it hasn't turned into a novel of a great safari. I'm not sure that you weren't influencing me by playing this, because I kept thinking, that music really is nice. It doesn't really go with Alan Mendelssohn. It tends to make a kind of humorous counterpoint at times when things of a very prosaic, everyday nature are happening, and then Watson fades into this swelling, movie theme.
That throws into sharp focus.
What happened is I started writing a book that will go well with that music.
What would the determinists say about that? They'd have a hard time going back to Genesis 1 with that, wouldn't they? I bring that up only to prove to myself and to those listening, you and the listeners, that I'm aware of this. I like to be aware of a lot of things I don't mention. They bother me, tease me, puzzle me. They are those factors in that equation I mentioned, without which we are not alive. Some psychiatrist I was talking to the other day, socially, as a matter of fact, I have quite a number of friends who are psychiatrists, and some of them are absolutely sane. I'm trying to think of one. Well, this one was. At any rate, he spoke to me of the fact that the ego works in, I'm sort of transliterating him, works within a time frame. I told him we were having I won't say a heated conversation, but a warm and confraternal and exultant conversation. He turned out to be the kind of guy I like, and I think you would too. He was capable of seeing many sides of the same problem. And I told him in the course of this conversation that I had never met anybody in my life whom I would prefer to be than myself. And he said, "Marvelous, that's what it's all about." So you timid folks come up.
I dare say that does sum it up from his point of view.
It does. I'm going to get around to something I think that may bemuse you in a moment, and it's a kind of modest concession. But in the context of our given mortality, why, for example, should I want to be, instead of myself, Lord Mountbatten, whom I admired enormously, but somebody killed the poor fellow with a bomb, that sort of thing. If I had Lord Mountbatten's looks and my appetite, there wouldn't be a virgin in the Western Hemisphere. But there isn't anyway, so I've disposed of that. Now, where were we going with this? Oh, yes, I was playing Beethoven's sonata. By the way, that reminds me, I think I have one. I think I'm going to play number 10 and number 31 later. I was playing Beethoven the other day, Pinkwater, and I said to the listener after it, I divulged what I was feeling and thinking as I was playing it. I am an unembarrassed jouster with the pretense, schemas, frauds, and so on, and I have long been impatient with people who say, "God said," and I turn a look of splenetic disquietude on them and say, "Who?" At any rate, I was listening to one of the Beethoven piano sonatas, and I said, all that I know doesn't really explain Beethoven. Is it possible that I left out God? I don't think so, but to me it's an open question. And I remembered a book I had read many years ago by a man whose name is it Turner? I'll think of it in a moment. Sullivan? I believe it is Sullivan. 3 initials, J.K.N. Sullivan, something like that. In which I believe he goes into this too. At least I was driven not into affirmation, but a sort of acquiescence to an alluring prospect that since I don't know everything, there may be something lovely that I haven't found out yet. And there may also be a monster out there. I don't know. But I'm going to play some more Beethoven. Now, that thought did move me at the time.
Yes.
But I'm very, very wary of anybody who is custodian of a system on whose behalf he will kill me for my own good.
Well, this is always a corruption of an impulse that I believe is legitimate. Not the impulse to kill, but the initial impulse, which you touched upon by talking about the totality of Beethoven and the fact that all that you know, and let me put it in personal terms so I'm not putting thoughts in your head or words in your mouth, all that I know and all that I could imagine, or all that I could imagine myself imagining, doesn't explain Beethoven.
That's exactly my thought. I said, that son of a gun, I said. Just being a musician could not have affected. There's something else going on there. What in the hell is it?
Well, this is my point of connection with what I take to be divine.
Mm-hmm.
That's my only proof of the existence of God. If someone says, I don't believe in God, I say, well, I do. And if they want to take it further, they say, well, convince me. I say, well, here's Beethoven or here's Mozart.
Mm-hmm. Of course, one would think almost primarily of Bach or Mozart, who were theists, at least publicly, and yet, I'll say something.
Mozart was all sorts of a guy. He had a lot of affiliations that weren't considered too theistic at the time, or still aren't, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm. Well, Beethoven, wouldn't it be wild if Beethoven converted me, a non-believer, to God? He's a sort of difficult to know. I find the whole thing very puzzling. Hear what I've done?
Yes.
You hear that? I'm a sneaky SOB. I had that in my... I hadn't planned this, by the way. As you know, Pinkwater, this is true. Someone asked, how far ahead do you plan your program? And I said, one heartbeat at a time. As an eclectic, I need material to eclecticize. But I happen to have this.
We were both contemplating.
What'd you say?
Beg your pardon?
What did you say?
That someone criticized a work of art a few weeks ago that this individual and I were both contemplating. And there was something not right about it.
Mm-hmm.
We were trying to put our fingers on that, or I was. I said, it was a piece of visual art that I had to do with. It wasn't mine. Something wrong with this. I don't know exactly how to characterize it. There's nothing wrong in its execution or in its content or in its intent so far as I can see into the thing. But what do you think it is? Well, this guy looked at it and he said, it's partially alive.
Aha.
He said, and that's always nasty.
Good
Better
hello.
to be not alive or all alive. And when you talk about programming one heartbeat at a time, I think I do recognize the validity of well-conceived, planned, conscious kinds of things, but for myself, the things that interest me most are things which are spontaneous and immediate, and those are usually the things that have the greatest value.
I'll give you an example there. Pardon us, Ludwig, for talking over you, but it's with love. By the way, I saw Beethoven's Death Mask in Venice one year with a beautiful young English girl with whom I was traveling. And it was spectacularly eloquent in its total lack of communication. The old boy had gone. He went. Whew. And there was his mask not saying a damn thing, because he'd already said it. I don't belong to that absurd romantic school or whatever it is, though, that believes that he had said all he needed to say and therefore his death was just fine. I'm outraged by it. He should have lived longer. And some of his potential siblings should not have been murdered in wars either, but that's sort of sophomoric. I went through that when I was 15 years old. I bled over people who had been perhaps butchered in wars and who had been unfulfilled geniuses. I guess you just have to take what time gives us and whatever else, not mourn too much. I don't know what other answers there are. Listen to this son of a gun go here. He moves me, I think, more when he becomes whimsical. Listen to this. You can't rig that kind of happy sound. You can sound pontifical and monumental with some of the Deus Ex Machina tricks of composing. But this kind of lyricism.
Sorry, that's flight. The thing that fascinates me always, though, is the seeming contradiction behind it, because that's spontaneity and immediacy, and what shall I say? It's a soul-lifting kind of.
Oh, I want to give a little credit here. Now, Claudio Arrau is the pianist, and I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, or last week, when I was playing some of these Beethoven sonatas. In fact, I think I played this one. I played number 10 later. I love it. That Claudio Arrau had told me a joke, a story. I had told him a story about a sentence that had the English word "had" in it several times, and I'll sort of synopsize this. The story is that you have, I don't know, I won't tell you how many there are because I don't remember, but it works out this way on paper. John had the teacher's approval. You understand that, don't you?
Yes.
Okay, you can see. So Claudio Arrau told me a story about several words Morgen in order. Morgen in German means both good morning and tomorrow and morning. So a man goes into an umbrella shop with his damaged umbrella. He says good morning to the umbrella repairman and asks, will you have this ready tomorrow? And the man looks at it and he decides yes, he will. So he says yes, tomorrow. And the man says good morning, and the proprietor, the umbrella manufacturer, repairman says good morning. And it goes like this: Morgen, 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 Morgen. Claudio Arrau told me that story. I have these crazy, delicious memories tucked away in my noggin. Every once in a while they cause me a furtive grin.
I think that's what a noggin is for.
Of course it is.
So it supports your hat.
I'm not noggin it, of course.
Yes.
You shouldn't nog it.
Punishment.
Oh, boy.